I should say that my background is that of a civil engineer originally, highways and transportation. I did postgraduate studies, I'm a qualified town planner and management, economics, resource management, energy, and a whole lot of things that I've attempted to absorb to increase my understanding of the urban system as a whole. And I've got through to philosophy and politics is really where the game is at. It's nothing to do with facts and realities, which is what we're on about. We're techo people. We know the answers. We know the problems. We know the answers. The problem is the public doesn't. The politicians don't. And we have a system now which is not conducive to our input.
Isn't it that the public does know, but the politicians override the public?
Yes, well, I'll give my presentation. You might find I've covered that, I hope. Firstly, we're here because smart growth is a problem, and it's not just smart growth that's the problem. The problem is the belief system. It's the messianic zeal with which reformers, self-interested groups that are about self-empowerment, ranging from designer city-oriented town planners, architects they are really, looking to shape cities to what to them are aesthetically pleasing shapes, without regard to the commercial consequences, the social consequences, and as far as they're concerned, they're not relevant. They represent an economic approach which doesn't answer environmental problems, so you can discount economics. As for engineers, they just want to build things willy-nilly, so we better get rid of those, and we have actively got rid of our engineering inputs. Certainly in New Zealand, we've got rid of our Ministry of Works, we've got rid of our city engineers departments, and now the enviros, stroke town planners, stroke lefties, have a monopoly empowerment at local government level to push their wares. And they're becoming increasingly corrupt, and they believe they're doing a good job. They believe they're selling us a quality city. They actually believe that they're providing a sustainable city for future generations without really knowing what sustainability they're talking about or what it actually means. And really, to my mind, really smart growth, which is what this address is about, really smart growth is a tech-only thing designed solely for Western New World cities. But it can never be implemented as a progression from smart growth into something that's actually pragmatic and works. That's what really smart growth would be. It can never be implemented unless we deal with the ideological problems, with the political problems, with the funding problems that we've built into the system. As Ron said, the only way is to clear the decks with all that, and how are we going to do it? How are we going to do it? So, just to give you an overview, I want to deal very briefly with what smart growth is, and not just the physical smart growth, what else is behind smart growth. I then look at the objectives of smart growth. What are they trying to do? What do they claim they're trying to do, and what are they actually doing? Then I look at objectives that I consider relevant to free democratic societies. Then I look at what really smart growth could be, using what Lone Pine principles have established as being appropriate for free democratic societies, as distinct from the Arfoni approach, which the smart growthers abide by. And finally, I look at how do we get from smart growth to to really smart growth. Well, smart growth physically is a footprint, it's an edge, it's about densification, it's about public transportisation, plus urban design thrown in as a part of that, and most particularly it's about empowerment of the planners to impose the plan. It's also a vision. It's the vision that's what's sold to the public, and you have the messianic promotion of the vision as a religion, as a substitute for Christianity in effect. It's a new form of religion for those that have seen through and passed over old world religions and need something to collectively aspire to as a future for society. They claim it's a silver bullet, that it's all things to all men. The plan is the answer. The plan is a sustainable city. It's an integrated plan. It's a balanced plan. It's everything. All you need to do is sign here And all our value judgments are written into that plan, so it's all, the problems are solved. Here are the outputs, they're all great, there are no side effects, there are no detrimental consequences. Moreover, it's a fixity, it's a vision for 50 years ahead, or 20 years ahead, or whatever. That's the goal. And it assumes current technology, currently assumed desires, planner assumed desires rather than measured demands, and it's claimed to be sustainable. In fact, their application of the word sustainability is that of stop the world. To them, sustainability translates to stasis, to stagnation, in effect, of what we've got. No more growth, no more change, freeze frame everything, and to me, that's death. That's death to Western civilization. That's certainly death to our economy and to growth. And if I equate civilization with growth and progress, to them, there's none of that. We've got to go back to the cave if necessary to protect the environment, because it's all about environment über alles. The environment is what it's about, no longer people. And as the high priests for the environment, the planners are our route to God. They have heaven on earth to present to us, and so long as we do what they say and buy into their plan, sign off and just sacrifice our mobility and live in these little egg crates, then the future of the world is not only humanity but carbon dioxide. We won't be killing the world with carbon dioxide. We'll have saved ourselves from climate change and everything. It's a panacea. It also reflects just the conservative side of human nature. Human nature is a range, ranging from our own dreams, but as constrained by our pocketbook, by realities, by our abilities, our resources. And we have, as individuals, to balance these things and to make our progress ahead in a balanced individual way. Society should be doing that too, but in fact we've just empowered only the visionary side, and we're no longer constraining it with the facts and realities. In fact, the visionary side is antipathetic to facts and realities, because to achieve the vision, which is not where the public actually wants to go, you have to force and mould the city into something different, which is not going to happen naturally. It's going to have to be forced into that. And to persuade the public that the new vision is where they should be going, you've got to change their attitudes, change their minds. You have to change their behaviour. You have to sell them the vision, increasingly as you're challenged on the basis of pseudo-facts. You have to create the facts to justify the vision. So you get denial. You get denial of realities. And there's nothing we can do in putting in submissions to local government or government on these matters. We're just talking past each other. The visionaries don't want to hear the facts because they're not relevant to achieving the vision. You may well have come across Thomas Sowell. His classic The Conflict of Visions treats this whole problem very effectively and persuades one, as it has me, that really there has to be another way. There's no point talking to planners or enviros about logic and facts. You've got to bypass them. So because we've got only a vision and it reflects the progressive, it reflects the conservative side only of human nature, stop the world, stop these changes which are threatening me, threatening my job, threatening my immediate environment with a high-rise building or a factory or whatever, stop that sort of change. It only serves that side of human nature, so the progressive, go with the flow, ongoing civilization is being sidelined. Thus the whole system is unbalanced. It's not integrated. It's anti-natural. It's certainly anti-human. It's anti-facts, realities. It's anti-cost conscious, of course. And it's, science and engineering and economics have no relevance to this system. In fact, that reflects the recent philosophical development of neo-something or other, which in effect says there are no truths and realities, that everybody has their own truths and realities, so forget science, forget progress. That happens automatically anyway. To my mind, since the Renaissance, we have made enormous progress. We're living up to 3 times as long, and we're living with far more choices and far richer lives, simply because we have freed up people to think and to communicate and to move and to progress. And that's and the scientific method has evolved out of that, and that's our source to progress in the future and to sustaining our civilization for future generations. If we're going to sustain anything, surely it's got to be for our future generations, and it's got to be our current form of free democratic society. That's got to be the primary goal. How am I going? Ooh. Well, I'll jump straight to really smart growth and forget the objectives and hopefully come back to that at the end of this time. Really smart growth is enablement planning. It's not constraint planning. It's a result of enablement planning. It's a reverse of the control, restriction, impose type planning that we've got now. Now, the only form of planning consistent with a free democratic society is enablement planning. The sort of Marxist central planning that we have is totally inconsistent with property owning, free thinking, personal values selecting, choice making society, which is enabled by representative democracy, where the representatives actually make the value judgments and do the trade-offs and make the decisions, not the planners. They shouldn't be building all of those major values and trade-offs into their plan and requiring politicians only to sign off, as is happening now. It's the politicians that should be making those decisions. Automobility is and must remain sustainable. It is sustainable. Anybody who explores energy, explores forms of motivation of cars, looks seriously at climate change and the impact that oil consumption is having on that versus all the other things contributing to that, knows that even using, that the oil is totally sustainable, that even using the present rates of consumption, we can go indefinitely into the future. But as it is, within 20 years, we will be consuming half the fuel per person kilometre delivered, just with technology already on the ground today, without any further improvement. And yet we have people trying to recreate cities in a totally different form, ostensibly to save energy, when the public transport they're advocating uses more energy per person kilometre delivered than the car.
We'll have fuel cells and automobiles in 10 years.
Yeah, well, there are all sorts of forms of energy. The point is our civilization is totally dependent upon mobility and interaccessibility. Where it's not happening efficiently in cities, those cities die. They do not progress as much as those cities which have good interconnectivity. I think it was Ron mentioned the 30,000 kilometres of motorway that China is building within 20 years. It's a 20-year time frame. I've evaluated some of those projects for the ADB. They're building 10 120 kilometre projects per year. They're producing this at the rate of 1,500 kilometres per year, which is the correct figure. I'm not quite sure if it's 10. I think it's 8. And over 20 years they'll have built the whole system, and it's linking up all these cities into a gigantic national network. So they've got a national market. Prior to this, they just had city markets. But you can imagine the explosion of their economy, and indeed their growth rate is a consequence of much better interconnectivity, telephonic as well as physical, within cities and between cities. That's what's propelling their growth rate. That's what lifted America to being #1 in the world, and also propelled Germany with its autobahns to being as powerful as it is. Even Italy. Now, automobility is and must remain sustainable, i.e. the primary objective of urban development is to ensure that whatever happens in future, interaccessibility is going to remain of a high order. PT is an expensive luxury. You can show that in anybody can show that it is an expensive luxury which is ineffective, and yet we are pushing all our money into that for ideological reasons. It's mad. Town planners are not competent at civil engineering, and yet we have elevated them to be managers of infrastructure. They know nothing about the practical aspects of infrastructure. They're not interested in it. They're only knowledgeable in demographics and whatever I meant by OS, open space. Things like planning open space and maybe doing nice pictures of town centres. And to some extent that influences architects, and if they can construe the owners to doing what they want, then yes, you can give people places. But that's their role in life. There's no way we're going to get rid of town planners. I mean, you try doing that, they'll just come up again and some other guys. And they're pretty damn effective at lobbying. You've got to accommodate them and give them a job to do and enable them to bite into that and have something that's ongoing. Otherwise, you know, not going to make progress. But you really have to disintegrate planning. Take the transport and infrastructure planning back from them. They have said, you know, give us all this power to plan infrastructure and we can use that to manipulate people's behaviours to achieve the designer city that we think is good for you. That's, to me, the key. And if that involves changing legislation, changing the government departments, that has to be done. Without that, no progress will be made. And we have to reinstate an independent, civil engineer-based infrastructure planning. And such planning is to provide an infrastructure which is robust, flexible, can be expanded in a variety of ways, and as many options being kept open as possible, can either have routes thickened up or links extended, routes extended. In other words, it's a grid network extendable as the city expands to meet efficient land use needs. The road has a basic framework for accessibility. Now, Buchanan Traffic in Towns, 1963 or so in UK, laid it all out very clearly. You can't mix, I mean, things are immiscible. The road needs, transport needs, and land use. You can't solve transport needs with land use philosophy or planning, and vice versa. Land use won't work without interconnectivity. I mean, that's the whole point. People live together in cities, is to interconnect with each other, to exchange and to interrelate and to experience far more efficiently, because they're closer than they could if they lived equidistant, right, spread over the whole country. It's because of that interactions that we live in cities, and because of the interactions and the productivity, we can progress as we have been. Now, a grid form unfortunately has to be overlaid on a radial centralised system, which was the old public transport model. The pre-auto model was everything downtown. Now, I don't know about your cities, but in Auckland we had 50% of our employment downtown immediate post-war. Today it's 10%. That represents a natural decentralisation of employment to where the people are, of commerce to appropriate scale positions within the overall framework. Sure, the high intensity functions, the high level functions have to remain central. Some of them can be dispersed to regional sub-centres, but by and large, decentralisation is where it's at. And that LA accommodates 15 million people in a highly productive city, and sure, it's decentralised, but it's still denser than almost any other North American city apart from Manhattan. It's got fewer lane miles of freeway, as you probably well know, than any other North American city above a certain population, which I've forgotten. And yet it works because it's got an arterial road network and because major functions are dispersed, and it doesn't have a heart. It doesn't have a downtown to speak of. And to my mind, there's no point criticising it for those things. It works. And lots of people are living there still. They haven't left there, so it must be working for them as well. Current and future generations must be the goal, not vested interests in self-empowerment, which is where the greenies, the planners, are at. Traffic engineering profession has an extensive history and skills in road network planning and development. It's all being ignored. It's all being hidden under the carpet or sidelined. We're having plans progressively dismantled or put in the bottom drawer and forgotten about. We're having skills deliberately sidelined. Maya, Canamole and Ashtoe are classic examples how big spacing should be between arterials for certain densities of city and so on. Subsequent problem, accommodating town planners as land use enablers and market facilitators. Evolving from smart growth to really smart growth. Smart growth is naturally unsustainable. It's going to come unstuck. It's already coming unstuck people are starting to realise that affordability is a problem. They certainly realise that congestion is a problem. And public anger and potentially revolution, where the public just gets up and wipes the whole thing. And what can happen then? Anything can happen, and plenty of societies have gone backwards when they haven't, when the problem hasn't been thought through and hasn't evolved into something better. So it's our job, as I see it, to go beyond being technical people. We have to not only advise the public where the facts and realities are, we've got to invent a way of getting from smart growth to something like really smart growth. And transitionary mechanisms include understanding the nature of the beast, The Future and Its Enemies by Virginia Postrel, Reason Foundation, I think she was the editor of, helps to understand these people, and it's only in understanding them that you can deal with them. We've got to pre-educate the public and re-educate the public as to what the facts are. We have to expose sustainability for the evil that it is, for the anti-economic device that it is. We have to promote science, engineering and economic institutional research and education. I belong to a variety of institutions, but too many of them have been taken over by greeny thinking professionals. People who think we have to find a better way. And it gets back to whether or not we've got a fundamental problem as a society as whether we want to survive. Do we want to keep going forward? Are we just going to buy into preserving what we've got and drawing in the corral around and trying to hide from potential threats? Now, I can't deal with that. I haven't got the time to deal with how you look at the objectives of smart growth, what they claim their objectives are, and what those objectives really mean, and whether they're achieving them or not. And in every case, you can see that what they claim to be achieving, they're not achieving. In fact, they're going backwards. They're being counterproductive. So, and I do propose some revised objectives for urban planning. And essentially, they derive from Lone Pine, that people should be free to choose, that a free democratic society gives people what they want and not what the planners want for them. And you can develop 2 or 3 key, simple, linear, integrated objectives for that, which are human-based, not environment-based. The environment is a luxury that we can and do afford when we've got the resources to do so and when the problems are big enough. That's how society has evolved. We never ran out of any resources. The only resource we really actually have here is here. We never ran out of stone or bronze or iron or steel. We just kept on finding better ways. So long as innovation and improvement was the model, we progressed. Now that's unfortunately as much as of your time as I'm willing to take.
David, a great presentation. I would only argue with you on one thing. Please don't talk about really smart growth. We must dump the term completely. Yes. Every time we try to do quality growth, baloney. We've got to find something new and don't use their terms. But a great presentation.
Yeah. Thank you.